Travis's marriage had been arranged by his mother. Emily, the bride-to-be, was the daughter of her best friend. Both mothers had dreamed of this union for years, eagerly anticipating the day their children would tie the knot. Initially, Travis and Emily resisted, reluctant to go along with their mother's wishes. However, after a few meetings, their perspectives began to shift. Slowly but surely, they started to see each other in a different light. Before long, the idea of dating didn't seem so absurd anymore. What started as an arrangement turned into something real. They began dating seriously, but agreed not to move in together until they had both completed college. Once they graduated, Travis proposed that they get their own place and finally live together. Their families, thrilled at the progress, constantly pestered them about planning a wedding and having children. However, Emily and Travis dismissed their parents' relentless hints, brushing them off like an annoying swarm of mosquitoes. Neither of them felt ready for the responsibility of raising kids. Instead, they wanted to explore the world, seek adventure, and continue learning before settling down. For a while, everything went according to plan. Travis landed a promising job, and after he and Emily got married, they jetted off on a dream honeymoon, eager to embrace their new life together. The excitement of being somewhere foreign and breathtaking filled them with joy. But their return home was met with an unwelcome shock. Travis had been laid off. Suddenly, he was thrown into a frantic search for employment, only to realize he wasn't the most desirable candidate in the job market. Most companies demanded years of experience or an extensive skill set, and he lacked both. Desperate, he accepted the first offer he could get, a physically demanding job at a factory. The paycheck was stable, but it was a far cry from the comfortable lifestyle they had envisioned. Emily, who had not planned on working at that point, was now forced to find a job as well. From that moment on, things took a turn for the worse. Arguments became a routine, blame was exchanged endlessly, and resentment started to eat away at their once happy relationship. "I'm so tired of scraping by. When are we ever going to live like normal people?" Emily snapped during one particularly heated fight. "This is just a rough patch. We need to stay strong and push through," Travis assured her. Try to remain optimistic. "Really? Look at how others live. Samantha's husband, Brandon, buys her anything she wants. She walks around like royalty, while Emily's voice wavered, frustration laced in her words. Travis's patience finally cracked. "Then why did you marry me? If that's the life you want, go find your precious Brandon," he shot back, his voice dripping with bitterness. Her words had struck him like a dagger. He had been working himself to the bone to keep them afloat, yet it still wasn't enough. He never imagined Emily would care so much about material wealth. It was a side of her he hadn't seen before, and it left him shaken. At the factory, Travis confided in a co-worker, desperate for someone to talk to. The older man listened before sharing his own painful story. His first wife had constantly nagged about money and luxuries. One day, he came home to an empty apartment. She had run off with a rich man, leaving him behind without a second thought. The tale haunted Travis. Could the same thing happen to him? The mere thought sent a chill down his spine. Determined to prevent that nightmare from becoming his reality, he made a decision. He would take on extra work whenever possible. When he told Emily about his plan, she nodded in approval. But there was something in her tone, an edge of mockery rather than gratitude. It stung deeper than he cared to admit. One evening, after a grueling shift, Travis returned home to find Emily dressed to the nines, her makeup flawless, her hair styled with precision. She was about to head out. He smirked, attempting to lighten the mood. "And where are you off to, looking so glamorous?" Her reply was curt. "Why do you care?" Travis clenched his fists, frustration bubbling over. "Do I have to drag every little detail out of you?" he snapped. "Who are you meeting?" Emily rolled her eyes, her tone sharp. "You ask the dumbest questions. I don't feel like answering." That was it. Travis turned on his heel and stormed into the bedroom, his anger simmering beneath the surface. It was no secret. Their relationship was crumbling, and everyone around them could see it. Then, one afternoon, an unexpected visitor showed up at his workplace. Samantha, the same Samantha whose perfect marriage Emily had envied. stood at the entrance, looking completely wrecked. Her eyes were swollen, her nose red from crying. Travis's stomach twisted. His first instinct was that something had happened to Emily. But Samantha shook her head and let out another sob. Brandon admitted it this morning. He's been sleeping with Emily for months. Travis let out a hollow laugh, the words too surreal to process. Could this really be happening? Was his co-worker's grim warning coming true? "Are you sure?" he asked, even though he knew it was a stupid question. Samantha shot him a wounded glare. "You think I'd make this up?" she spat, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Realizing his mistake, he quickly apologized. "What are you going to do?" She gave a hopeless shrug. She had no plan, no idea where to go from here. Travis suggested they meet up later to talk. He still had hours left on his shift, but the revelation haunted him. The rest of the day passed in a daze, his mind racing to the past few months, connecting all the red flags he had ignored. By the time his shift ended, he was spiraling. He grabbed his jacket, jumped into his car, and drove straight to the cafe. Samantha was already there, eyes still puffy but calmer. They talked, really talked, and oddly enough, it felt good. She admitted that Brandon had never been the perfect man Emily made him out to be. In fact, Emily wouldn't stop gushing about how incredible he was. Travis snorted. "Yeah, I used to think so, too. Until I married her." Samantha let out a bitter chuckle. Funny how reality hits, huh? Afterward, Travis drove home, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. He wasn't just going to ask Emily about it. He was going to throw every ounce of betrayal back in her face. He rehearsed the words in his mind, crafting the most brutal lines he could think of. But nothing could have prepared him for what he actually walked into. The moment he stepped inside, he froze. His reflection in the foyer mirror revealed the unthinkable. Emily wasn't alone, and neither of them were wearing a stitch of clothing. She was on her knees in front of Brandon, so absorbed in what she was doing that she hadn't even noticed Travis standing there. For a moment, his brain refused to process it. The same woman who used to hesitate over every new experience in bed with him was now shamelessly indulging in this? With another man? Brandon's head snapped up, catching sight of Travis's reflection. He cursed and grabbed the first thing within reach to cover himself. Travis's beloved crochet blanket, the one his mother had made for him. Something inside Travis snapped. With a furious roar, he lunged at Brandon, fists swinging. They crashed into the coffee table, sending objects flying as they wrestled violently. Emily screamed, trying to shove them apart. Desperate, she grabbed the nearest book and swung it at Travis's head. He staggered back, dazed. "Are you out of your damn mind?" he shouted. "You're going to kill him," she shrieked. That momentary distraction gave Brandon just enough time to scramble to his feet, clutching his now bruised face. Without a word, he bolted, barely managing to grab his clothes before disappearing out the door. Travis stood there, chest heaving, hands still clenched into fists. He didn't care anymore. He and Emily had no house to divide, no real assets tying them together. This was the end. The breakup was brutal, a storm of venomous words neither of them would ever take back. His mother called later, sobbing, begging him to reconsider. But he only let out a bitter laugh before hanging up. There was no fixing this. A month after the divorce, his phone rang. Samantha's voice on the other end was lighter than before. "I did it," she said, almost breathless. "I finally kicked Brandon out." There was a pause, then a hopeful laugh. "Want to celebrate?" They started talking more after that, realizing that maybe, just maybe, all of this had happened for a reason. Maybe it had led them to someone who truly understood. As for Emily, she moved in with Brandon, but it wasn't long before reality set in. The charming, generous man she thought she had won over was nothing more than a controlling manipulator. Now that she had nowhere else to go, his true colors emerged. He held every dollar over her head, chipped away at her confidence, turned her world into a cage. Samantha had been right all along, but Travis felt nothing for her now. No sympathy, no anger, just relief. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it.